Okay, so as folks are in the East Coast are getting ready for lunchtime, people on the West Coast are probably leaving their morning meetings, joining in. So I'd like to welcome everybody here to our Grow Your Brain session here in December. We are delighted to have the one and only Anne-Marie Kerwin from WARC. She's prepared an awesome presentation to us today for the future strategy report. So for those who don't know Anne-Marie, so Anne-Marie is the America's editor for WARC. She spent over 25 years doing editor roles across several of the top kind of marketing publications in North America, from Ad Age to eMarketer. And so she knows a thing or two about our industry, particularly strategy as well. So if this is your first time joining the Grow Your Brain, so Grow Your Brain is a lunch and learn that we do through APG Canada. I'm your host, Pedro Porto Alegre. I'm a director of strategy based out of Calgary for an agency called WJ Agency. And so essentially what we do here with Grow Your Brain, we invite folks like Anne-Marie. So they could be, from, folks that come from the, publications and kind of authorities like WARC, all the way to clients that maybe come in to share some of the experiences they've had or campaigns they've ran, all the way to other folks that maybe are creating some interesting new resources like AI tools and things like that. And we kind of interview them, have a conversation, very informal. And sometimes, we're going to have a presentation like this one where there's a lot more to share. And so, super excited to have Anne-Marie do this for us today. Just a quick note, if you have any questions, you can drop them here in the chat throughout the presentation. We'll kind of start, kind of gathering them, and then towards the end, we'll then ask Anne-Marie the questions, and then we'll be on our way before 1 o'clock Eastern. And then I guess if you're on the West Coast, it will be 10 o'clock West Coast. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Anne-Marie. We are recording this as well. So in case if you want to watch this again, we're going to be uploading this to the APG Canada YouTube channel. But yeah, let's rock and roll. Anne-Marie, over to you.
Thank you, Pedro. Thanks so much for having me. I really am excited to be here for your coffee and learn for those on the West Coast, lunch and learn for those here on the East Coast. So just a little background on WARC. WARC started over 2 decades ago because in 1983, David Ogilvy said that no other profession gets by on such a small bank of knowledge as advertising. So since 1985, WARC has been trying to meet that challenge. And today we have a community of over 75,000 marketers in more than 1,200 companies and in over 100 plus global markets. And our aim is to help marketers and their partners make the case for marketing effectiveness by providing evidence and expertise from industry practitioners like many of you. So, Pedro, I guess I can just do like a next
Yes,
since we're
just let me
driving.
know and I'll keep moving. Yeah.
So, what I'm going to do today is take you through the results of WARC's annual Future of Strategy survey, which we've done for the past 8 years. And this report highlights key findings from the survey of strategists worldwide. It looks at 4 challenges facing agency strategists and outlines 3 ways to reignite the discipline. So, this was an online survey of over about 1,200 strategists worldwide. It was conducted between July and August of this year, and the majority of the respondents were agency side, but we also had brand and independent strategists in this as well. So I know as strategists, you like to know where the data comes from. So I just wanted to ground you in what we were talking about. So next. So we really saw 4 themes emerge from the responses this year. And the first is that strategy has an identity crisis. So the role and value of strategy, many feel is not clearly defined. Is it upstream or downstream? Is it broad or specialist? Does it all work in service of broader brand and business goals? Strategists need to clearly define the value they bring to clients' businesses. 2 was a lack of whole strategy thinking. Because of the complexity of digital media today, we have many team members who specialize, and that's a true need because specialist roles are important. But the splintering of strategy can be problematic if teams are not collected to clients' broader brand and business goals. The third key challenge is that strategy is undervalued. How clients compensate strategists is an issue that has really gained salience this year in the survey. We know that great strategy can have a profoundly positive impact on clients' business, yet the impact of strategy can be very hard to measure and prove. And then the fourth challenge we have is that fundamental skills are under threat. We have reduced training budgets from agencies, tight deadlines, hybrid working, and a lot of senior talent leaving to create their own consultancies. And so that means there's this increased threat of a skills gap in strategy fundamentals, especially in things like critical thinking, which can get just swamped by the sheer volume of data we have today. So next slide. So this is a verbatim from one of the survey respondents that we had, and it points to strategy's identity crisis. That this person said it feels like strategy would benefit from a rebranding, genuinely taking stock of the value the discipline brings and how that is a benefit to the brands we work with. Next. So this is a question that we ask every year so we can track it, and it's how much influence does strategy wield, and is that growing or diminishing? And the worrying trend here is that more respondents this year disagree with the statements that the planning function has gained more influence within the agency and with clients over the past year. And even though it's still a minority, it is a growing group that feels like influence is waning. So the glass half full news is that half the respondents do see influence gaining within agencies and clients. So many of you are seeing the effect your work is having and are feeling optimistic. But what does that mean for the growing pessimistic folks? And they need some reasons to change their outlook. So maybe there's a good chunk of folks who are wielding influence that we can learn from. Next slide. This next question aimed to get at how strategists view their role as it relates to clients and agency teams. And so the majority of strategists see their role as a translator between teams and clients, but there does appear to be a lack of alignment around core areas. Only 22% agree that clients and strategists are in sync on how to evaluate creative ideas, and just 29% agree there's alignment on how to measure effectiveness. So strategists can close this gap through knowledge of the commercial side of their client's business and working towards those metrics that matter. This is why it's important for the entire team to understand the drivers of marketing and creative effectiveness, especially as we're getting to that splintering of a lot of the strategist roles. Next slide. So this is another verbatim. I've sprinkled these throughout just to let you see what your fellow strategists are saying. And this is one of our respondents said that fluency and effectiveness principles is the future, that if we're not connecting back to the key business metrics and not creating in service of the business, then we're just doing crafty movie nonsense. So that's a pretty strong take. If you want to go to the next one. So how do we make sure that strategists are in sync with their clients' business goals? 77% of strategists agree that they understand the language the clients use to describe their business goals, but just 30% agree that clients understand the language that strategists use to describe insights and ideas. So there is a disconnect that strategists feel like they know what the client is saying, but they don't think the client knows what they're saying. And then there was research that WARC has done over the past 2 years with the ANA here in the US that found using the same language between partners is key to creating a culture of creative effectiveness. There's another watch out in this slide, which is that 35% disagree with the statement that clients treat strategists as business partners rather than suppliers, and that is also something we see creeping up. So this is a challenge for a good number of you to ensure that strategists are getting a seat at the table. Next slide. So as I said, last year WARC worked. That's always a difficult thing to say WARC and work in the same sentence. But WARC worked with the Association of National Advertisers to produce this framework for marketers. This is really aimed at the brand owners. But the goal was to explain how the most effective marketing organizations were able to consistently deliver against their goals. And the framework is known as ABE, Align, Build, and Embed. And what this research uncovered was that very successful marketing organizations are aligned with the C-suite. The CEO and the CFO understand the vision and have agreed with the CMO on the metrics and evidence that the organization is going to use to track marketing's contribution to growth. So within the marketing department, these organizations have built a robust creative effectiveness operation with key team members responsible for delivering and guiding those efforts. And the common language established has been socialized throughout the organization and its partners to evaluate creative work and how to recognize great work that will deliver against the organization's goals. So the third lead, embed, is where the language, goals, metrics, and evidence are socialized through all the teams with agency partners within the company itself to make sure everyone understands how brand building work is propelling the organization forward. So if you go to the next slide. So following building the culture of creative effectiveness report, which was in 2023, this year we published the second phase of the research, which examined how the ABE framework is working. And a major finding was that organizations that had 3 or more of the building blocks in place already were outperforming organizations that had fewer planks in place. So what this tells us is that even organizations that aren't at the end game of having built out the entire framework, they're starting to see the benefits just by getting 3+ planks in place. And if you go to the next one, Pedro. So what we see in this is a little bit off our future strategist survey, but why I'm bringing this up is because we really see strategists as being advocates and participants in an ABA framework by stepping up to the partner to help develop that common language that clients can use throughout their operations and help be that translator to socialize the thinking throughout all of the teams. They're the ones within the agency that can socialize the client's business goals and metrics to the agency teams. So all of this is to say I did this little diversion to set up this next question, which we have from the survey. So I just wanted to give you that background. So responses to this question could point to why many strategists are seeing waning influence. Fewer strategists see working upstream as an opportunity compared to last year. Fewer see opportunity in balancing short-term and long-term objectives, and fewer see an opportunity in helping clients manage risk. So that's been a shift in focus compared to last year. And that, along with the finding that only 41% believe clients see them as business partners, is a little worrying. So the dangers in here, just 26% think there is an opportunity in accelerating sales growth and profitability. That should be like table stakes for everybody. For clients to see strategy as a key partner, strategist teams really need to understand and show how they're contributing to growth and profitability. This is really a watch out for strategy leaders because this is something that a strategy leader needs to make sure everyone is pulling in the right direction and know what direction, why they want to take that direction. So let's see, next slide. So one of the shifts that we see as being viewed as a partner and not a vendor is that the brief is a place to start these conversations. Only half of briefs on a regular basis include commercial outcome objectives, which means there's an opportunity to influence marketing effectiveness if strategists dig in there. And the data suggests there's a gap in client understanding of their target audience. Just 24% of strategists say detailed information about the target audience feature in a majority of client briefs, while 13% say this information does not feature in any briefs. So strategists can really help fill the audience insight gap by showing that they have the deep understanding of their clients' consumers and that the strategies that resonate with them. And the data suggests there is a need for better briefs. And so what can your teams do to help get clients to getting you the information you need? Okay, the next. Oh, here's another verbatim. Um, so the future of strategy will be fundamentally human, understanding and responding to the contradictory, messy, complicated, and unpredictable world of people, meeting their needs and wants profitably and sustainably. So it's just this is a little bit pushing back against like what can we do as humans that AI can't do? This is another thing to think about. So let's turn to another theme, which is that strategy is undervalued. And I often feel like future of strategy is a little bit of a downer for everybody, but I think and it could just be that like we're talking to a lot of people who are thinkers, and so they think very deeply about these problems and are very good at articulating the problems. But I promise you, there is hope. But strategy is undervalued is a theme that came out this year. Half of all strategists disagree that clients pay sufficiently for the value of their work, and only 1 in 4 agree that they are paid sufficiently for their work. And this is consistent across all the markets, all the regions. Measuring improving the impact of strategy on clients' business is the eternal issue, according to EY's Karen Crum. And so the undervaluing is one we can see in the earlier question that found that respondents believe clients don't view them as a business partner. So what can we do to change that perception? That's the challenge that this has been put forth here. And part of digging into like how are strategists actually being compensated? The two most common compensation models that we saw are labor time-based fee and fixed project-based fee. The fixed project fee matches how strategists think they should be charging clients. 44% see it as the ideal. Fewer advocate, only 24% advocate for the labor time-based fee. 18% think a value performance-based fee should be applied, suggesting that strategists do want a direct link between their work and outcomes, but only 2% use this model. So we have not landed on the best fee structure, I would say. And if you go to the next one, if we look at this by agency type, consultancies have the closest match in terms of current versus ideal, 59 versus 54, followed by independents and smaller shops for fixed and project-based fees. But there's a big disconnect between the current and ideal compensation model for creative agencies. Time-based is the current model for most, and only 27% think that's ideal. Across the board, all agencies prefer value performance-based fees, but the model is just very rare. So that may be a little bit out of our hands how we advocate for changing that, but it might be something that you want to discuss. Next slide. And so this was one of the verbatims that helped lead us to finding this finding that clients are continuously asking uncomfortable questions about the value they are getting, and it seems like it's falling on deaf ears in most agencies. So definite challenge. We also heard from strategists that there is a real worry about the shortage of time to get all the work done and to set up robust training for team members who are starting out. Many pointed to the danger of not cultivating the next generation of strategists and the lack of resources invested in training. Only 43% of strategists agree that their company invests in training to support their professional development, with 31% saying they're not getting it. Regionally, the agreement was lowest among strategists in North America. And as Lance Koning, managing partner of We Are Rivals, noted, when I started out, strategists endured quite a lot of rigorous training. Today, strategists are lucky to get an orientation and overview as agencies have stopped investing in building this discipline while demanding more and more of it. Next slide. So the issue of how strategy is valued by clients and within agencies impacts how team members see their professional growth. Similar to 2023, half of strategists see a clear path within strategy and planning in the coming years. However, agreement with that has dropped 11 percentage points since 2022. So this is another one where over time we're seeing sort of a little bit of danger signs. And looking at this question by years of experience, less than half of those with 11 to 20 years experience agree they see a clear path, with 29% disagreeing. So this is the same group who have the least amount of time to complete their work. And among this group is where we see a lot striking out on their own and setting up consultancies. So that's great for those who are doing that. That's a definite path that's legitimate and valid. But what does that do to the agency or client teams that they leave behind? The more experienced folks aren't there to influence and lead the junior members.
And
So
Marie, what I find interesting about this is that because you know younger strategists nowadays have less rigorous training, let's say, versus the older generation, yet they see a clearer path in their careers than the older strategists,
right, yeah.
right?
And part of that might just be that they see the next stage, I'll move to the senior level without fully comprehending what skills they'll need to get there.
Mm. Okay.
Like because they're losing those that guidance as more and more people move out at that more higher mid to senior level. So um I mean it's not that everybody sees no path forward. It's just we're seeing that tick up year after year is like where we're noting that it's getting to be more of a danger zone.
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, we can go next one. Oh, and so this is from Mark Pollard, who does a lot of training with strategists. And he says he sees a lot of senior strategists leading teams, but they're mired in new business battles or have management politics or a life calamity. And young strategists, what he's hearing is they feel like they just have to make it up on their own. So if we go to the next one. So how do we cultivate a culture where strategy can thrive? So some of the tips that we gathered from all of the people who contributed, one is define what great looks like and the metrics of success towards that greatness. So do this together first within your organization and then within your team to meet the organization's definition and then in partnership with your clients. So this is part of that ABE framework. If you think about like how do you make sure that everybody is in sync and understanding what we're pulling towards. Two, strategy is at best when it's a catalyst for greatness, and at worst a distraction if it's not pulling in all of the right people. So define everything in service of the ambition of what the client wants to achieve. And then three, greatness is achieved when the sum of the parts work together on that shared ambition. Basically, all three of these come down to make sure you're communicating across all the teams what the goals are and that the goals are clear. Because what we've seen through the survey is that people feel like the often they're working in silos and they're not really seeing how they're contributing to their client success. So that's so because we're in 2024, we cannot get out of a presentation without talking about AI. So this is our obligatory AI discussion. But um, really, how should AI tools be integrated in a way that enhances work and allows for more efficient use of time is what this gets to. So if we get to the next slide. Um, Speedy access to research and insight and streamlining repetitive tasks are the top opportunities that strategists see for leveraging AI. Although streamlining repetitive tasks did see a decline compared to last year, and that just may be a reaction to having a year of actually experimenting with AI tools and realizing what's possible at this stage. Um, but like how much they'll be able to like free up time for work. Next slide. The most significant limitations for the use of AI remain the same as 2023. Skewed outputs, lack of creativity and originality, ethical and legal concerns were the most common answers here. Almost half cited a lack of transparency about how the output is created as a limitation, and over a quarter cited a lack of relevant technical expertise as a limitation, which suggests a need for upskilling in this area. So another area of concern is how AI will be used and what aspects of the work will still require humans rather than outsourcing to AI. And really, List and Pittman sort of articulated for us what we found is that the role of advocate really is one that AI is not going to be able to replicate. So if we go to the next one. What we heard from this survey is that a key aspect is to be that advocate for the strategy across the teams. Translating strategy into impact is a collective act, given that the surest way to ensure impact is to lean into the social aspect of strategy, doing strategy with others, not to them. Um, some of the foundations of this is also similar to that ABE framework, but this is the framework that Liston Pittman has come up with specifically to strategy. Um, found building a foundation, designing the alliance, which is figuring out who should be involved and who will help advocate and create common view of the ambitions for the work. Make room for discussion and create space for dissent. And then most importantly is your strategy documents, which you're going to use to disseminate the strategic vision. You need to make sure that they're valuable. Think about, is this useful in guiding decision making? Make sure it's interesting. Will it hold someone's attention? Don't be dull. Make sure it's clear that it can be interpreted without further explanation by someone who's not involved. And then you want to just maximize the propulsion. And once you have those very valuable strategic documents created, make sure you know how you're disseminating them and getting them into as many hands as possible. And just invite others into your process. Don't just think about writing being the end game. It's really propulsion, get it out to as many people as possible. So, uh, so how can strategists reignite strategy and resolve that client strategy disconnect? What we've come up with is to adopt whole strategy thinking, emphasize that strategy is bigger than an ad or a digital idea, know the big picture, make sure all strategists, specialists understand the big ambition and business goals, make sure everyone understands the client's business and financial metrics, understand the customer. Marketers have lost sight of the customer, close that disconnect by showing consumers to them and helping them understand the market dynamics and the diagnosis of their brand, and then burst the strategy bubble, retain that link to real life and in-person research, and demonstrate how you understand customers' lives, because that human perspective is still going to be key, especially in the age of AI. So that is a quickish summary of the future of strategy report. If you go to the next one, if you want a copy of the report, you can follow this QR code to the link. If you're a WARC subscriber, you can get the whole report. If you're not a WARC subscriber, there are more than 20 articles from strategists in front of the paywall that explore a lot of these themes. So either way, you'll be able to get to something that you can read. And that is this year's Future of Strategy.
Fantastic. Anne-Marie, thank you so much for taking us through that. So for the folks on the call, I'm going to open it up for some Q&A now, and we'll get us started. And so, by the way, if you have any questions, let's keep this very informal. Feel free to kind of get yourself off mute and ask a question, and then Anne-Marie will try to answer it. But I would like to kind of start, Anne-Marie, with the a point that you left us with on the final slide around that whole strategy thinking. Have you seen, from the, being on the side of WARC where you kind of see all these agencies kind of leveraging your tools and talking to you, agencies successfully positioning their strategists to play like a bigger role beyond just comm strategy or creative strategy? And what does that look like? Or do you still see strategists still kind of being stuck on that, promotional P of the 4 Ps of marketing?
Yeah, yeah, that is the main problem we've heard from strategists is a lot of them say they want to work upstream, but they're kind of relegated to that P, that promotional P. Um, I mean, part of it is getting, if you can get a client who wants to do a culture of creative effectiveness, like some of the examples we have from McDonald's working with their agencies are really strong. It's almost needing to do a job convincing the client that this is in their benefit to let the agency be more of a fuller partner. And then within that, the strategist team then gets pulled in to do more meaningful work. But it is, this is really why that's advice for a strategy leader, because they're the ones who need to like get their teams set up so that they can respond in a way that they're like talking to the client's financial metrics and growth and profitability concerns and not get cut out of that conversation. So it's it's a big lift because you really need to get that's also why we're saying strategists need to be the advocates, because you really do need to like start talking about why marketing effectiveness measures are so important to growing the client's business and what it can bring to the client's business.
Hmm. Yeah. It is an interesting challenge too, because I know, of course, whenever a client hires an agency to do some work for them, typically they're looking for some sort of output, like some stuff, right? Like how we like to call it in the independent agency world. They're looking for stuff, right? And strategy is the thinking behind the stuff. And so I do see, why I think strategists are having a difficult time proving what value do they bring, because the whole point of strategy is, minimizing the risk and kind of connecting the dots to drive results. And you're not going to see the results until after the stuff is launched. So, have you seen any examples or even, any thinking around how do you sell strategy to clients beyond just, hey, we are here to kind of do the thinking for you, and then the real show is creative. Like, how do we move strategists away from being the drum roll to creative? Have you seen any kind of people thinking about that on how to change that?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to hear if anyone has examples of the sort of machinations that have happened within agencies to do that. Really, I just have kind of the outcomes of the ones that we think are doing it well, like AB InBev does it very well, like the companies that you almost need, like I said, you need to like convince the client that they need to change the way they think about marketing if all they're asking for is like one campaign or what, like, do you know what I mean? Like it's it's so much bigger than just the day-to-day work, which is why it
Yeah,
gets true. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Which is why I can see why, a lot of strategists want to tie the billing of their work to performance, right? Because this way you're not, necessarily like, being that drag up front before creative, and then you can, show the proof is in the pudding when the work delivers results, right?
Right. Oh,
Um,
yeah.
right. Um, so I got another question here, and folks, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat if you don't want to go off mute. But what sort of skills then, Emery, do you see strategists needing to sharpen up for this future of strategy that you just took us through?
Yeah. Well, I would say really fully understanding the AI tools and what they can be used for and can't be used for is going to be super important, because holding on to the value of strategy is holding on to the thinking that we can that strategists can bring that AI is not going to bring. AI is, I think, really good at the moment of like coming up with the expected, but humans are very good at coming up with the unexpected or seeing the incongruous, or uh, just seeing like those points where humans are going to connect because it's something that's odd or off or just so true, right? So I think the more you know what AI tools can do and can't do, the better you can position what value strategists are bringing just by being humans. I think that's very important. And then that networking, your networking skills, I think are going to have to be really sharp to be able to be that advocate, to be that voice, to get at the table and make sure that you're the one helping to elevate the role of strategy in those meetings. So I think networking and really being able to distinguish what you can use AI for to save you time and what you bring that's not that AI is not going to do.
Hmm. Yeah. AI. We had a few weeks ago we did a AI battle with the APG Canada, and
Oh, you did?
yeah, and so we got a couple of some of the top kind of strategists in Canada, and there was Team Human, and then they went
Oh,
up against Team Robot to write a creative brief, and then he was evaluated by the audience, right? Nobody knew who did what. And of course, Team Robot was backed by some humans, of course, making sure that the inputs were going in. And yeah, the results was Team Robot won, which was
Team
kind of,
Robot won.
yeah, Team Robot won. Of course, there's one kind of data point, right? But it goes to show that when humans kind of work with AI, in the right sense, right, for the right purpose, you kind of see the quality of the work just you know going above what people would maybe an untrained strategist per se would never be able to deliver, right?
Right,
So
right. Yeah.
yeah,
Interesting. I think we're still such early days with AI, and uh I think the I'm just right now everything seems very impressive because we've never seen it before. But if everyone's using those tools, everything's going to start looking kind of the same.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
it's how who's behind the tools that I think are going to matter.
Yeah. AI
Yeah.
always reverts you back to the mean, right? And so I think, in the end of the day, I think there was a great book about called How to Ask a Great Question or something like that. It was one of the was a guy that used to work at Crispin and Porter, and then he went to IDEO and he wrote this book about asking great questions, right? And I remember him saying that, hey, up until now, up until basically Google search, okay, we're still talking old technology here, Google search, up until Google search, the people with the answers were the ones that rose to the top, right? But now that the answers is at our fingertips, they're no longer the ones that hold the power. It is the
Right.
people with the right questions now, right, that will hold the power of this next kind of chapter of knowledge work, I guess you'd call it. Because if you ask AI, random things, it's gonna pull from the whole universe and give you something very generic. But if you ask precise questions, then you control the sources and things like that, all of a sudden you'll have something, that can be useful.
Right, right. Because if you democratize that ability, then it's like, who are the people who are going to elevate beyond that, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I have
well,
a question, just
oh, yeah. Hi, Angela.
from a more historical perspective, because having been around the block for a few times, these findings, excluding, of course, AI, because that's all very new, it feels like a lot of the same issues we've always been challenged with.
Mhm.
So I wondered what your perspective is on that, recognizing, of course, that the survey's only been done for 8 years, but I know you've been around for a while too.
Yeah, I think we agencies have always been under budget constraints. That's true. Uh, I think the consolidation in agencies seem more acute in the past couple years than they have before, but all the independent consultancies and smaller agencies starting up are also moving a bit faster and figuring out how to do things differently. So, um, and like I said, I do think future of strategy always feels a bit like a bummer when we get the survey results because we are asking people like, how do you like your job and how do you see your job? And everyone likes complaining about their job. So I think that's like where we get a lot of the same. So where we're trying to look for is like, where do we see the movement, even if the movement is small, for like the things that seem more worrying. And the lack of training, I think, seemed more acute this time. Um, uh, just because I think we're in an age where there is a lot of people uh, looking from a management point of view. Can we use AI? Do we need this many people on payroll? Can we like figure out how to do some shortcuts? And I don't know if we know yet what the shortcuts will lead us to. Do you know? Like it, I guess we can say, well, maybe it'll be fine, but maybe then they'll find more clients will suddenly be like, well, I want to go with this independent shop because they seem to have uh, more ideas or, a different point of view. So um, I think, yeah, maybe none of it is new, but it's like where the shifts happen that give you an indication of what people are, how the job is changing, I would say. Yeah.
And I guess one of the things that I think is perhaps more acute now is the loss of the senior leadership, those people that would behave as mentors and instructors, if you'll use the phrase, for the juniors that are coming up.
I also think the hybrid work has changed things because the younger employees aren't getting that day-to-day sort of instruction on listening in on client calls or like understanding being in the room. Like a lot of that stuff, I'm an older woman as well. I've been so the hybrid work really, uh I didn't feel like it affected me that much because I already have robust networks in place and I have a lot of professional experience, but I do think for younger employees, they are missing that things you just soak up because you're sitting next to more senior people who can quickly say, "Oh, don't do that. Do this. Do it that way. That's much quicker." And those kind of things don't happen as often. And I think and so if you combine that with pulling back on training programs, uh, it's gets a little bit more acute of a problem.
Pedro, are you going to plug APG's latest educational efforts?
100%. Yeah, so that's a great point, Angela. I think that's one thing with APG that we always try to do is making sure that we are tapping into this body of knowledge, right? That we built over decades, and then being able to share with the new strategists, even mid-level strategists, right? Because what we see is folks that maybe are in the intermediate strategist role, that kind of learned the role on the job, right? And then didn't necessarily have the formal training of strategy, which even then, what is that even, right? It's kind of like, did you go to marketing school or did you go to Miami ad school? There's of course advertising, education you can get, right? But when you think about the role of the strategist kind of expanded beyond the promotional P, if you go just to ad school, sometimes that can be a little bit limiting, right? And so what we try to do with APG, APG School of Strategy, I forget the exact name that we gave it to, but we are tying it to industry professionals that are practicing today, that have been around the block, and be able to run kind of modules that have a bit of a Canadian angle to it as well, right? And one thing that we see with Canadian strategists is that we are kind of different from the rest of the world, or not at least different from the United States, but more so, is that a lot of our strategies actually come from abroad. Folks move into Canada and they maybe practice strategy in a different country, and they were able to kind of leverage cultural insights from that place, and then come to Canada, and then how do you tap into the culture here? And so there's a lot of that, and then informal mentorship as well. I think that's been something that we've been able to do, not only by hey, if you're a member of the APG, you get to talk on the Slack channel and tap into this network of like 500, 600 strategists across Canada, and it's awesome that we feel very united in that sense, right? Regardless of which agency we're all from, and so 100%, right? There's kind of little things we're trying to do here and there, and then of course WARC, what can I say? WARC is the authority. So if the agency has that subscription to WARC, they also get to tap into this crazy database of knowledge, historical knowledge that can help folks learn more. And Maria, I have one question around career. I think like you said, I think the new folks may have a clear idea of what their career path looks like. Of course, it's a bit of a generalization, but I'm curious to get your thoughts. Having seen the profession, the discipline evolve over the years, how did the career arch of a strategist typically look like in the past? versus now, and maybe, what would you say it might look like in the future?
Yeah, I think like if I think back to like 10 or 15 years ago, there was more of a path within the agency that like, I come in as a junior strategist and, I get moved up through the ranks. But now that we're seeing that 10 years in, people are like thinking about starting their own consultancy or they go brand side. There's a lot more specialist paths to take that hadn't been before, and then you can get sort of taken off on a path of like doing like more digital media specialty as opposed to sort of broader general strategists. So I think one of the things that we're seeing is a bit of the people who can step up to leader because they have that broader view are fewer if you get more and more people siloed into specialty roles. So it the specialty roles, like I said, are very needed. We need people who understand how all those different channels are working and like how to plan for them or how to think about them. But uh, with that leaving of the more senior people, make sure that that team that's in those specialty roles have a path to move up to like a broader thinking, how do you pull all the pieces together role.
Yeah. It's almost like the tactification of strategy feels, right? Where you kind of, used to have your, account planner or your brand strategist that was thinking at a strategic level, and the role kind of got fragmented into several, well, really tactics, right? Like SEO strategists, social media strategists, that, um, and do you think that has had a negative impact on the thinking behind strategy in our discipline?
The perception of what strategy does then also has, like it is easy to sort of then think about it, well, we're just gonna just worry about that one P promotion and you're not needed for anything else, right? Like so I think that's part of the challenge for agencies as well to get past to get back into like saying we can be a partner on all four Ps, but even on the brand side, we've seen that that role often a CMO has doesn't have control over product or pricing or place, all of that. But they're also cut out of those conversations, which so we've been saying to CMOs, how do you get back into those conversations? Because it really does all start with the client, right? How the client is structured is how they're going to use the agency as partners. So we're trying to get through to the brands that there's a smarter way to go about marketing and make your marketing more effective. Uh, like I said, it's a big lift. We're we're willing to fight the fight though.
Yes, yes.
And
Well,
Marie, to that point, I have a quick question. I too have been around the block a few times, Angela. I remember the days when we were strategic partners because I grew up working on P&G, and
Oh, yeah.
we were strategic partners across all four P, across all P, like beyond the Ps. Um, so my question is, I'm a bit nostalgic about those days. I'm one of the people that went out on my own and went straight to brand. Can we fix this and sort of re-embrace that old model? Because I really love the way creative people um, attack strategy different than anyone else, especially the more logical people that are on the marketing side, with all due respect. They have a particular spark that maybe others are afraid to tap into. So I think there is a bit of genius in this model together. But I wonder, do we go back to the old model and find a way to get there through education or what have you? Or is there a new model? Is there a new adjustment and how we figure out?
Big projects we've been working on is getting, you know, the digital giant sort of rose up, right? And you had Google and Amazon and Facebook, and their complexity And their big sell was that they were performance marketing. They even coined the term performance marketing as if other marketing doesn't work. And so they came out with all of these great metrics that showed how much your advertising was working. And, I think there was a little bit of it was very seductive, right? All of this, all we have, look, we have all these numbers that show that it's working. And so more and more money is being funneled into performance marketing, less and less into brand building. So one of our big pushes for next year, 2025 at WARC, is to say, remind people that you're going to do so much better at that performance level if you have strong brand in place. And there's so much evidence that shows having a strong brand in place lifts all of your other efforts on performance marketing. A lot of new brands also hit that, like what we call the doom loop, because they count on performance marketing in the early years and they get like, they just get that tick up, 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 but then they hit the wall because they're not reaching enough new people to bring into the brand, and they haven't done any of that brand building work. So that is something that we're talking about. You're going to get so bored with hearing me talk about it next year, but
Well,
it is something that we really are trying to push just to get back to that idea that like your strong brand building work does so much for moving your organization forward.
well, I appreciate that effort because sometimes I feel like I'm the only one out there
Talking about brand.
over and over and over again, educating people on the marketing side. Like you have to introduce
I
this
feel like
thinking.
we have a whole generation that's grown up on this idea that performance marketing is best, the right time, right person, right place, sort of mantra that's never really panned out to be true. Like it really is about.
There are thousands of case studies that prove outperformance, price resilience, innovation, growth, like all the integrated aspects of what strategy can do. And my category entry point is scale ups. When they hit that wall that you talk about, they're like, what the hell? Why can't I get from 50 to 500? Well, because you're missing a key piece of the discipline at the heart of your business.
Right, right,
So
right.
it works, but I'm only one person. It's
So
one thing at a time.
in January, we're releasing the report called The Multiplier Effect, which lays out a lot of this. I can share with you, Pedro. We
Yeah.
have another QR code that's not in this deck, but I'll share it with you, Pedro, for anyone who wants to get on the list to get that report as soon as it comes out. So I'll send it to you, Pedro, when we're done with this. You can share it with the group, with
Sounds good.
anyone
I'll be knocking, Pedro.
Yes. Yeah, no, Marianne and I have had lots of conversations around brand building and the need to kind of integrate a little bit more, disciplined marketing thinking, right? I just feel, I know that we all hear about Mark Ritson kind of talking about this stuff, about the need for marketing training, stuff like that. And I would agree, I think that it's funny, right? Because it feels like marketing is one of those disciplines that is the most undisciplined. People kind of stumble into marketing, a lot of people, and they stumble into it through social media or through a tactic per se, right? But there is I know that there's hope. I know there's a lot of initiatives kind of coming up around marketing training, around associations like the IPA, WARC, APG, and so got to keep spreading the gospel of brand building and marketing strategy.
We're
So,
always looking for examples of people who are really doing a great job of combining brand and performance and or who are on this or who are on a similar path of the ABE framework. So if anyone has examples or come across examples of that, please ping me because we're always trying to like showcase those and get the word out. So
yeah. And Maria, I have one last question for you before we start wrapping up. I know you mentioned there was one of the slides around consultancies versus agencies, right? And I think when you mention consultancy, I imagine you're probably talking about McKinsey, BCG. Is that roughly the group?
actually it's more the small strategist consultants who have gone out on their own.
Okay,
That's
gotcha.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, because when I think about, business strategy, right, which, was sort of roughly was in the up and up at a similar time, in the 60s, 70s. That's when the account planning, was kind of invented. But it feels like, companies feel more comfortable hiring like a big consultant to work on very tangible things, right? Like supply chain optimization, HR, restructuring, whatnot. But there seems to be some hesitation on kind of giving the strategy keys to a creative agency to try to solve problems through the lenses of a creative strategist. And so I'm not sure if you guys have any sort of, perspective on that. Like, how do the McKinseys of the world, is there anything that we can learn from the business strategy consultants that we could apply maybe to the creative strategy world of agencies?
I mean, I think the sort of secret sauce that creative agencies and strategists have is that connection to the consumer, just that like understanding of what consumers and humans do. And I don't know that the McKinseys of the world spend as much time worrying about what individual humans do. But like if you're gonna come up with a marketing strategy that connects and consumers see the utility of your product, the need for your product, the must-have of your product, all of that's going to come out of consumer insights, right? And I think strategists are at the forefront of coming up with the ones that really matter. So I would say maybe don't try and imitate the consultancies and really lean into the strength.
Love that. Love that. What a way to kind of leave us with some food for thought. I think we are the voice of the customer within the business. Whether you are a brand manager at a client side, or a CMO, you're the voice of the customer, and then agencies, are also that, and consumer. I feel like there was at some point I heard some sort of metaphors like, hey, the accounts team, they represent the client, the creatives, they represent the agency in a way, and then you kind of have the strategists representing the consumer, right? The
Right.
customer, right? And being that connected tissue between the two. So I love that. I love this final thought, Anne-Marie. So
Be the translators.
the translator. Yeah. Okay, well, we are at time. Thank you so much, everybody who was able to join. Anne-Marie, this was a great conversation, great presentation.
Yeah.
Love this. We will be uploading the recording to the APG YouTube channel. More details on that to come. Grow Your Brain will take a break here in December and January. We typically Grow Your Brain takes the first half of every month, whereas Let's Do Lunch, which is my colleague Spencer runs, takes the second half of every month. So the next Grow Your Brain will all likelihood will be happening February. So stay tuned for that. And until then, happy holidays. Have a great rest of the year and a great start to 2025. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.